What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, I'm gonna just be breaking down my process during dreaming Spanish and how I feel, tips, tricks, where my motivation comes from. I'm just give you, a whole breakdown on how I personally go through the dreaming Spanish process and what I do. You know what I mean? So I have some notes right here where I'm gonna just be reading off. So bear with me if I'm constantly looking down at my notes and reading off of it. So to start off, I feel like it's just very important to enjoy the process of just learning Spanish in general, whether it be dreaming Spanish, watching movies, or whatever. I'll get into that later, but I just feel like you just got to enjoy the process. I feel like it's a journey. You're going to get there eventually, and you're not always going to be perfect. So I feel like one important thing is just to enjoy doing what you're doing. Whether, like you watch a video and you may not enjoy watching the video at the moment, or you may be bored, or you may not be tuned out, but just do it every day, bro. Just do it every day. You know what I mean? It's just enjoy the process. That's all. And make it fun for yourself. That's the only thing that I'm trying to say. Just make it fun for yourself. You know what I mean? Try to find something that works for you, like a routine that works for you on your schedule, and just make it fun for yourself. I feel like that's the most important thing you can do, because if it's not fun, you're not going to want to do it. Like, if you're just beginning and you're trying to put a whole bunch of stress on yourself, it's not going to work out. And if you find a way to make it fun for yourself, it's the process is just going to be a lot easier. You know what I mean? So that's one thing. The next thing is, I feel like once you get into that flow, once you find a way on how to make it fun for yourself and how to actually go through that process, I feel like you get in like a workflow almost. Like, it's like once you start and once you get into that workflow, you can't stop. It's almost like you feel weird when you're not listening to Spanish. I don't know if any of y'all can relate, but it's like you almost kind of feel weird. You know what I mean? So like, I feel like when it comes to that process, bro, just make sure you're having fun with it. You know what I mean? And get into that workflow, because once you get into that workflow, it's like you can't be stopped. You just every day, or if you miss a day, it's gonna be weird. Like, oh, what am I doing? You know what I mean? If you're not listening to Spanish, it's almost like a guilty conscience, if you get what I'm trying to say. So yeah, just get into that workflow. You know what I mean? Just keep doing it. You know what I mean? Like, whether you feel like you can't do it, or if it's a day that you're like, oh, I don't feel like doing it, get at least 15 minutes in. Like, start. And then once you start, you're like, okay, I already started, so why not just continue doing it? So just get into that workflow. That's one of the big things that really helps me. Just when the voice in your head is like, oh, I don't want to do this, I'm not going to do this today, just be like, okay, I'm at least do like 5 to 10, 15 minutes. You know what I mean? And then once you do it, you're like, okay, I already did. I'm already on here. You know what I mean? I already started. Just you gotta just attack that mindset in your head, that voice in your head. So that's one thing. One thing that I do experience while going through this process is it's weird. Like, I can remember words from my memory. So like an example, like at work I had a water jug, and on the water jug it said contigo, which means with you. So like I remember asking my coworker, hey, what does this mean in Spanish? Or I think he told me, whatever. He told me what it meant. And now I can't forget what the word contigo means. Like, contigo, with you. I can always, so when I hear it in the dreaming Spanish, contigo, it's always gonna be in my head. I already know what that means. So I feel like if you could tie a memory, or if you could find a way to make a word unforgettable. And I'm sorry if I'm yapping, but if you can find a way to get a word and make it stuck in your memory, like, I feel like it'll help your process of learning new words and learning new phrases much easier. So like, if you could just try to identify words and then bank it into your memory. Before I even found out about Dreaming Spanish, I kind of already was doing the Dreaming Spanish process, if that makes sense. Like, I would just kind of like at work, I would have an earbud in. I would always listen to, you know, Spanish podcasts and try to understand what they're saying. Always talk with my coworkers. I live in Florida. I live in Tampa, so in Tampa, it's a lot of Spanish speaking people here. You know, my peoples are from Miami, and I always go down to Miami to visit. And Miami is, if you've never been to Miami, Miami is basically a Spanish speaking country. But yeah, I was already kind of learning Spanish before that, and I was already kind of asking my coworkers and asking people I knew, my friends, not my family, but I was asking my friends on like, oh, what does this word mean? And this, that, and the third. I would listen to Spanish podcasts, this, that, and the third. And I kind of was learning Spanish through that. And then I came to find out what Dreaming Spanish was. So I feel like I'm on level 4. So I'm gonna get to why that's important in a little bit, but just keep that in mind. Like the method that I'm doing, it just keeps me on a pace. It keeps me on a pace to where like, okay, I can actually track where I'm actually at. I mean, it may be wrong, but I know for sure, hey, look, I'm right here. You know what I mean? So I feel like the method I'm gonna show you in a second, it'll really break down and help you understand. Now, here's like some tips that I have for you guys. I always listen to other people's success stories. Like, I always go on YouTube and watch other people who have done it, because that gives me a motivation to where it's like, okay, if they can do it, I definitely can do it. You know what I mean? Like, if they could go through it and they're learning Spanish, like a YouTuber that really has helped me through the process is Mike Ben. You know what I mean? Shout out to him. I've seen his from his beginning to end, and then that really kind of motivates me. That keeps like a motivation every day. It's like, okay, hey, look, I seen where he started and I see where he's at right now, and that kind of like breaks down like, okay, if he could do this, and if he was like this in the beginning, I know I can get to this point eventually. So that's one thing I feel like that really helps me learn learn the process. Another tip that I have for you guys is just watching Spanish shows. Like me personally, I watch telenovelas, you know, I watch the Narco series, all of that. And like I said earlier, you want to enjoy the process of it, you know what I mean? So whether that be, hey, look, I'm gonna watch this Spanish show in Spanish, but I'm gonna have the English subtitles in. I feel like if you okay, so one thing that I was doing, right, I would watch my 2 hours of dreaming Spanish every day, right? Those 2 hours, okay, I know for sure that I'm getting my comprehensible input in. But when I get home later that day, I'm gonna go put on this show. I'm gonna enjoy. I'm gonna relax, and I'm gonna watch this telenovela with the English subtitles on. I know, cause this keep in mind, this is in the beginning, right? And this is when I really couldn't understand everything fully. But when I watched those novellas with the English subtitles, I was hearing Spanish. I was hearing the things I was hearing in Dreaming Spanish in the videos, right? But I could kind of read it, and I would hear it. I would keep repeating. I know people say, "Oh, don't watch Spanish shows, right, with English subtitles." It's like you're not really learning anything. But me personally, it's like, okay, I already watched my comprehensible input. So if I watch this telenovela with the English subtitles, what's the difference? I could actually learn something, and then I did actually learn something. I would learn phrases that they would repeat over and over, and I would read it in English, and I'd be like, oh, okay, this is what this means. So when I go into Dreaming Spanish, I learned it, you know what I mean? So I feel like if you just enjoy it, do it how you want to do it. I feel like, yeah, there's better methods, but if you enjoy it and do it how you want to do it, I feel like that's the most important. I feel like personally, if you do have friends that speak Spanish, like close friends or friends that you're really cool with, that are patient enough to help you learn Spanish, I feel like you should be speaking with them as soon as possible. Even though it tells you not to, in the Dream in Spanish. Whether, I'm not saying try to full on speak with them. I'm just saying, like, okay, if you have a question, ask them. Hey, what does this mean? ¿Cómo se dice es? ¿Cómo se dice eso? You know what I mean? I feel like you should just, what does this mean? What does this mean? Like, if you have those close friends already that already speak Spanish, I feel like you should practice speaking with them. You know what I mean? I feel like it won't hurt nothing. Whether they say, oh, look, it's going to hurt your pronunciation, but I feel like, in my personal opinion, I feel like it really doesn't affect anything. I might be wrong, but this is just my process. This is, how I'm going through it. So, like, I always used to ask my friend, hey, what does this mean? My friends, my coworkers, all of that. I used to ask them, hey, what does this mean? You know what I mean? I feel like that's one thing that really helped me through the process, and it helped me memorize certain words, phrases, you know what I mean? So, like, I would ask them all types of questions, speak with them, things that I will only speak with, things that I kind of knew and learned already. So I wouldn't try to come up with some new bullshit, you know what I mean? Another thing that I do is I only listen to Spanish music right now, currently, on where I'm at. I feel like only listening to Spanish music really helps. I'll learn something on the Dream in Spanish, on the streaming. I would learn something on the Dream in Spanish platform, and I could kind of hear it in music sometimes. I'm not saying all the music, because a lot of the motherfuckers be speaking fast. You know what I mean? But I feel like me currently just listening to Spanish music just helps a lot, because, like, when I'm only listening to it, that's the only thing I'm listening to, I feel like that's more I wouldn't say comprehensible input, but that's more input that really helps with the pronunciation on how I speak, when I speak, you know what I mean? Like, you just hear stuff and it's like, oh, I know what that means. And you'll hear stuff, you're like, oh, I don't know what that means. But eventually you'll be like, oh, I know what that means. So, like, once you're watching and then implementing, listening to music every day. Another thing, my coworker, I had an idea, right? I came up with a good idea. I always chill with my coworker during breaks, and he's Mexican, and all he listens to, he doesn't really have an aux cord in his truck, but all he listens to is the radio. And so I'm sitting with him during breaks, and I'm listening to the radio, like, subconsciously. I'm listening to the radio, and I'm like, why don't I listen to the radio on my own time? Like, when I'm in the car, if you think about it, when a baby learns a language, it's surrounded by the language. Even though it doesn't know the language necessarily, it's surrounded by the language. So, like, my thing is, okay, in the morning, I might just throw on the Spanish radio sometimes, and if I'm not listening to music, or if I don't have anything, I just have the Spanish radio playing, and they'll just be talking, or they have some music playing, and then I just try to listen, try to hear out for words that I know, phrases that I know. And that's one thing that also helps, listening to Spanish music and listening to the radio is two things that I feel like really does improve your Spanish faster. At a certain point, I feel like through the whole process, even when you're just kind of listening to videos and all of that, you kind of zone out. And this is one thing that I'm trying to get better at. I'm trying to focus on what I'm listening to, because once you're listening to, no matter how many hours you're listening to, let's say you only do 30 minutes a day, an hour a day, 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, you're going to get to a point where you're like zoning out, and it's kind of like in the background. And me personally, I feel like that's okay, but I feel like you want to try your best to listen out and just try to listen to the words that they're saying. Even though that you might not understand it at that moment, I feel like it gets better over time. Like eventually you're gonna understand it, and eventually it's gonna click, and eventually whatever. I'm almost at 300 hours, and I feel like I can understand a lot. I can't understand everything. I say if I listen to a podcast, you know, let's say How to Spanish, right? How to Spanish podcast, I can understand 60%. You know what I'm saying? That's why I feel like I can understand around like 60 to 55% of what they're saying right now. I feel like if you just keep listening and try to focus on what they're saying, I feel like you're gonna get it. You know what I mean? Eventually, you just keep going at it. Consistency is, I feel like, one of the most important things you could do. You know what I mean? Right here, I'm gonna show you guys this real quick. One thing, another tip right here. Some of this stuff might be inappropriate, but this is focus, bitch. This is what happens. I don't know if it's backwards or whatever. Anyways, this right here, phrases, right? When you're talking to your coworkers or when you talk to your friends or that crosstalk, right? I feel like once you learn a new phrase, go ahead, throw it in your notes. Like I have a whole list right here of phrases of things that I learned. You know what I'm saying? Coming across new phrases and new words. You know what I mean? But like for example, you know, for example, you know, on here, barriga. I know that's barriga, belly, guantes, gloves. You know what I'm saying? I work on a construction site, so I'm an electrician. So I feel like I just, you know, just simple things that I work with, I learn. You know what I mean? So like, me vale verga, me vale verga, me vale verga. No, damn, cut that out, nigga. You know you need to cut that out. Estoy lleno. I'm full. You know what I'm saying? Just simple phrases. Tú has visto. Tú has visto. Tú has visto. Tú has visto. You know what I'm saying? Have you seen? You know what I'm saying? Simple phrases, you know what I mean, that you can learn. I feel like you just write it down. So every time that you learn a new word, you could look back at your list. You could look back at your list and see the new words that you add, and look at the old words. Like I said, your memory sticks when it comes to learning new words. So I look at my list now, and every single word, every single phrase on that list, I remember what it means because I learned it. I keep looking back at it when I add new words. So I feel like that's another you know, sleeper that, you know, people don't do, or you might not do to learn a new language, you know. And then the last thing, I feel like this might be the most important thing. Find your motivation on why you want to learn Spanish. I mean, that gets you up and learning Spanish every day. Like if you slack, you look back and you're like, okay, I can't slack on learning Spanish because I need to do this. For me, it's because I want to, you know, I like to travel. So I had a previous travel to Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico was fun. I might show some clips here. You know what I'm saying? You know, I was getting lit in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico was super fun. If you've never been to Puerto Rico, you gotta slide. But when I went to Puerto Rico, you know, like I said, I was learning Spanish before dreaming Spanish. And when I went, I knew how to say a couple phrases. And sometimes you might talk to a person that doesn't speak English, you know what I mean? That doesn't speak English. And it's very frustrating when you're kind of learning something new, but you can't have a full conversation with that person. Me and my brother, we had went on a little 2-man on these 2 females, right? They ain't speak a lick of English. So me and my brother, we plotting, we had a couple little drinks in our system. We seen two little Puerto Rican things sitting down at the table, right? And me and my bro, we go pull up, right? We go pull up to talk to him. Nigga, you know me, I knew a little bit of Spanish, but I ain't really know Spanish, you know what I mean? So when we went to go talk to him, it's like, what are we gonna talk about? We can't talk about nothing. We could pull out Google Translate, but me personally, if I pull out Google Translate, we're gonna have a conversation. It's not really authentic, you know what I mean? I'd rather speak to you, you know what I'm saying, and throw a little game at her, you know what I'm saying, throw a little something at her, but I feel like I wasn't able to talk how I wanted to talk. And I think that's what started my real deal seriousness on learning Spanish, is because like I really want to, not necessarily just talking to females, but just talking to Spanish speaking people and talking to people that speak another language in general. So I just feel like it's very dope when you could just have a conversation with a person in another language and you can actually connect with them. I feel like it's the coolest thing in the world, you know what I'm saying, when you guys don't speak another language, but you can speak the same language. You know what I mean? It's just very dope to me. So I feel like that's one of the biggest things. And I'm gonna show you guys my progress and when I started and where I'm at now. And why I'm only at level 3, but I feel like I'm at a higher level than that. So yeah, I'm gonna show you guys that on my computer right now. So look, see, like I said, I'm at 232 hours. Coming, yeah, 232 hours, about to hit 300 hours. The reason why I feel like I'm at a higher level is because I have 0 hours outside the platform. So I really know exactly where I'm at. So like right here, I listen to podcasts all the time outside. I watch a lot of Netflix shows, all of that outside the platform. But this just gives me, how I use Dreaming Spanish, it just gives me a basis to where I know exactly where I'm at. So if you go right here, we're in December. I started in July, right? This is the process, you know what I'm saying? I feel like consistency is a big thing. I didn't always hit my goal. My goal was 100 and whatever. As you can see, whatever. Look, so yeah. Just a big thing is just consistent. Just try to stay consistent. Just try to stay consistent. That's all I can say is try to stay consistent, enjoy the process. I don't know if it's a good video. Let me know in the comments. If I made sense. If I didn't, it is what it is. But yeah, that's just my advice, my tips on the Dreaming Spanish process. So see you guys in another video. Thanks for watching, and yeah.